show empathy to the person next to us. It may be a person with disability or without disability. You don't know what the other person is going through. Show empathy, don't judge. The more we interact with people with different disabilities, the more we will understand them beyond the pity and the inspiration side of things, and only then will we be able to report. It's the lack of exposure, I would say. The media's perspective is very narrow, that disability is equated with poverty, is equated with lack of skills. As if there is no mainstream options available, which is far from the truth. Right now, we are living in our own two bubbles, where there is a non-disabled world and there is a disabled world. These worlds have to collide. They have to intermingle. They have to exchange ideas to get to understand the other side.
Hello and welcome to the India Autism Center podcast. We are at the International Purple Fest in Goa 2025, and I have with me somebody here who I've known for a while, who's been doing a lot of interesting work on disability and communication, Shruti Pushkarna. She's the founder of Karunedi Consulting, doing a wide variety of work on impact, brand communication, and DEI. Before that, she's worked with some of India's leading organizations on disability, and she was a journalist before that. Shruti, thank you so much for joining us on this.
Thank you, Nipul, for having me.
Shruti, you've been a journalist. You write a lot on disability even today.
Right.
Unfortunately, when we look at the mainstream media, disability is covered in two ways is what I've noticed. One is as an inspiration porn ki isne school top kar diya, college top kar diya, etc.
Yeah.
And the other is more out of pity and sympathy, or when something drastic happens, when some kind of discrimination or something which is newsworthy. Right. But the real meat and potato issues around disability are hardly covered.
Right.
I know you're writing a weekly column, I think, on disability?
Fortnightly column. Yeah.
But why do you think mainstream media is not really covering disability through a 360-degree perspective?
So I'll start with a confession. I was part of the mainstream media. So,
I know, and that's why I'm asking this question.
Right. So I'll start with that confession. So I was as ignorant as the mainstream media is today. We suffer from ignorance. Our exposure to disability is so low that we don't understand the real issues of disability. Unless we come face to face with disability in our day-to-day lives, and which has now started happening a lot more than back then when I was in journalism, or when I even stepped into disability inclusion 10 years ago. So the more we interact with people with different disabilities, the more we will understand them beyond the pity and the inspiration side of things, and only then will we be able to report. It's the lack of exposure, I would say. I blame that.
And how can that change?
That can change. You have to have persons with disabilities come to regular institutions of education, workforce, entertainment spaces. We have to remove the infrastructural barriers, whether it's digital or physical environment. Once those are removed, when people come out in an inclusive space, in an inclusive environment to interact with each other, the attitudinal barriers will start shedding. Right now, we are living in our own two bubbles, where there is a non-disabled world and there is a disabled world. These worlds have to collide. They have to intermingle. They have to exchange ideas to get to understand the other side.
But that's going to take time. And the media normally is a useful tool to create that change.
Absolutely.
So wouldn't it be faster if the media changes? And what steps could the government take or the private news channels take to change themselves?
I think a little bit is happening because of all the mainstream films and some of the OTT shows that we are seeing. Media also means a lot of entertainment media. So films like Tanvi, the Great, films like Sitare Zameen Par, and OTT shows that are on Netflix or Autism, with a lot of protagonists on autism spectrum, they are changing the mindsets of people because media has mass reach, right? Unfortunately, news media has not been very proactive. And I keep urging, and that's why I write in my columns, how media needs to represent disability in a certain story. We need news media to talk about every national issue and take a disabled person's perspective as much as any other individuals, because they are citizens of India as well. I mean, if there is inflation, if there is tomorrow, like yesterday, like demonetization happened, that has affected persons with disabilities. Climate change is affecting persons with disabilities. So when we have these prime time discussions, why are we not seeing people with disabilities come into the panel? Once we get that, the education from the other side will start happening, and only then the news media's perspective will change. Right now, our perspective, the media's perspective, is very narrow, that disability is equated with poverty, is equated with lack of skills, as if there is no mainstream options available, which is far from the truth. And that is something I've realized only working in this space. And so as a journalist, I've been educated, and that's why I write about it.
And yet you've picked and chosen two movies that are specific towards disability. There are many other movies around disability which are very derogatory in nature as well. Ark Mecholi, for example, which
Right.
I had to sue us there.
Yes.
Because of the way it showed
Absolutely.
disabilities in a weird way. The disabilities were laughed at, and the main story behind that movie was that if you're disabled and you have to hide your disability to get married.
Right.
So movies can create harm as well.
Absolutely. We have to see, as individuals, especially working in the media, we have to be responsible, because media has a mass reach, like I said. Now, the two movies that I have cited also have problems in them. But, the problem is vast. There are few people coming and working towards the solution. So I rather also look at the positive side of those things, right? So I understand there is a lot of derogatory terms that is used in the context of disability in mainstream representation, but I yet still look at the glass half full. So in all these movies, I have seen the better side of it also. And the fact that, dinner table conversations in families around these shows and movies are at least bringing disability to the table. This was not happening even 10 years ago when I joined the sector. Today, the terms accessibility, inclusion are, you don't have to explain these terms anymore.
Why did you join the sector?
Why did I join the sector? That was accidental, actually. I didn't choose to join the sector. I was tired of being in the media, because media was sort of losing its editorial essence. And I wanted to do something different, which was more impactful. So I came to the social sector, and I was lucky enough to meet George Abraham, who I had in my media days known and interviewed and made stories on.
You interviewed him on this podcast, in fact. So yeah.
Great. So he was then heading the blind cricket world, blind cricket federation. So I had known about him and blind cricket through him. So I got a chance, an opportunity to work with him. And once I started interacting with blind people, coming from a visual medium, mind you, where I had to unlearn all my visual storytelling and learn a new side of communication with blind people, I was really humbled, and I was sort of taught my place, but it was a great learning in terms of how much exists in terms of accessible design and assistive technology. And I wanted to know more. I was curious, and there was no looking back. Once I learned about blindness, I wanted to know what about other disabilities. So yeah, and then and also I am a caregiver. My mother is a wheelchair user, but I never actually ever classified her as a person with disabilities. Only when I came to the sector, I realized that, my mother's been an innovator. That's how I looked at her all my life. So I don't know, the both personal and professional met.
Great. What was the stereotype that you had about disability that you think a lot of people might have today that changed after you entered the sector?
I think I equated disability with low economic conditions. I only thought that, it was the low economics that was affecting disability. I did not know that there was a whole spectrum. And also, as far as blindness was concerned, I was also guilty of thinking that either I had the image of them crossing the road with a white cane, or them playing harmonium in buses and trains. So I knew very, very little. And once I came into the sector, all those myths were washed away very soon.
Today, you're a DI consultant.
Yeah.
When you approach a corporate,
Mm-hmm.
What is the business case you present to them to hire people with disabilities?
Actually, just the business case. So one of the reasons that I moved out of the nonprofit space was also because I felt that this is not a problem to solve from a charitable perspective. So having worked with so many persons with different disabilities, I know the efficiency, the talent, the skills that exist in this country that can be tapped. This is untapped talent. Even in the media industry, I feel now, I was a news producer, and I feel that so many functions like editing, recording, writing, Even shooting can be done with by different disabled people. So I actually make those cases. I understand the jobs from companies. I understand what skills are required, and I suggest to them what kind of disabilities will be good to work on the table. That's it. And I don't even think about, most people think that locomotor and maybe hearing impaired will work in their office. I don't think go by those distinctions.
No, it's often said that the business of business is business. Imagine I am a billionaire. I have many businesses. Both those things are not true, obviously. Make a pitch to me why hiring people with disabilities could increase my profits.
I'm not going to make you a pitch on that. I'm going to say that you need a person to work, and a person without disability and person with disability. You have to look at both their resumes, and if there are skills that match your expectation and you get your deliverables, you should not discriminate. That's my pitch to any business person. Actually, it should make your life easier. You should get your value for money that you're investing in the resource, in the human resource. They are both equal human resources. Then why discriminate?
No, fair enough. And obviously, I believe that there is a business case, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
The other thing is that when it comes to employment of persons with disabilities, there are two industries that have dominated that conversation, which is A, hospitality, and the other is IT.
Right.
Have you seen interesting examples outside these two where companies have done a great job in?
I actually heard of an interesting example from Vineet. Did you also talk to Vineet for this podcast earlier?
I'm recording him with him tomorrow.
So he told me an interesting case that of Down syndromes being experimented to employ in daycare centers.
Okay.
That was very interesting to me. I heard it this afternoon. He said that because Down syndrome individuals are very caring and full of love, why not use their idea of care for babies? So I'm really looking forward for that case to scale, and that will be an example for us to share forward.
And that is great if people with Down syndrome are getting hired that way.
Yeah.
But one more observation that I've had with corporate India is that there are a lot of companies that are going after numbers, but there's no career progression of people with disabilities that is thought of. Yeah. How can that shift happen?
That shift will happen with those numbers actually entering the workforce. When you have enough people engaging with at different levels in different roles, you will drop the biases and the conversations will move from checklists to actually, now that you have this workforce, how do you help them grow? Right now, that is not happening. You're only right now ticking the boxes because there is a mandate and there is a whole brand positioning that, we are an inclusive brand. And right now it is being done without any understanding of the disability. It is only being done because a company will go to an NGO. The NGO is creating a training staff. They'll be hired as interns. Right now, the conversations are that level. It will take time. It will take a few years when these people have been in the system for some time in different roles. Then the growth conversation will happen. Unfortunately, it is really not happening right now, barring a few examples where the education levels and the qualifications are so high. But if you look at most persons with disabilities, they don't have the privilege to have had access to that kind of education.
But
it will take a few years.
You seem quite positive that this will get solved.
I always see the glass half full.
Oh, that's great. That's a great attitude to have. But it is also a reality that career progression has been a challenge. With companies that have been hiring people with disabilities for decades.
Because in fact, in my workshop that I was taking earlier today and yesterday, growth stalling was a problem case that was put. And a lot of times, it's about communication. It's about what do you need as a leader? You don't equate those problem statements with the person you have at hand to grow. You just think that it's a disabled person. Will the people he or she will manage will be able to communicate with him? Will they be able to, because leadership is all about communication with clarity and giving direction. So right now the conversations are not entering that level. Once, like I said, the exposure to disability has to increase at all levels. Once that happens, growth conversations will also come.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, we all hope so.
You are a DI consultant. Yeah. If a company which has never had a conversation on disability comes to you, walk us through the journey you would take them through to become an equal opportunity employer towards persons with disabilities.
So if they have had nobody in their organization with disability or they have no understanding, I usually do an inclusion test. So I interact with the team and different teams like the leadership team, the HR and the DEI and talent acquisition team, and the team who is thinking of hiring and absorbing that person, to understand their sensitivity towards something like disability. They may not have the understanding yet, just to get a simple, like what do you say, a litmus test, so to say. Once that is done, then I take a sensitization session, tell them what disability is about. And the next step is to work with the TA and the HR representatives to understand the various job roles and then help them. Okay, what are the different job roles that you have and which disability will work? And then whatever the company has in terms of numbers decided to absorb in that department, then help them identify resources. Once the resource is identified, that is just the beginning. The person is hired, that is just the beginning. It will take 3 to 6 months of continuous support to make that hiring a success. A lot of times companies are just hiring, ticking the box and moving on, and 3 months later they have to lose that person, which I think is unfortunate, because PWD integration is really a journey and it takes about 3 to 6 months in my experience. In that 3 to 6 months, which I call onboarding support, you have to be in constant touch with the supervisor, the person with disability himself or herself, and the caregiver. Those are the three parallel conversations you have to keep having to ensure that everybody is equally included and integrated into the system, and then it works. And in my case, I can at least vouch for 6 or 7 cases which have really worked with that system. I know that number might seem small, but it's good enough for a start.
Of course, every company that you transform is
Yeah.
great in that
Yeah.
sense. It's
Yeah.
might be a drop in the ocean, but it is a drop, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
there might be a lot of parents of children with autism who are watching this podcast. Because
Right.
it's hosted at the India Autism Center.
Mhm.
What are the career opportunities that you've noticed people with autism can avail of?
So there's a lot of career opportunities that I have seen people work in.
And of course,
There's
autism is
corporate-
also in a spectrum. So
It is a spectrum, exactly. There's people that I know who are persons with autism professionally employed right now: graphic designers, data analytics, insurance, indexing functions of insurance, content writers, anything to do with digital marketing. Also, grievances which are to do with email grievances resolution. So these are the levels of jobs that I have seen, and then there might be exceptions who have gone up higher in the hierarchy. Yeah.
you're also working on communication. You do a lot of diverse work.
Right.
That is what I've noticed.
Yeah.
How can a company make the communication accessible to all?
Yeah, so in all the brand positioning work and social media work that I do, and also when I deal with companies, I tell them to make their websites accessible because that is the WCAG mandate. I make sure I educate them about making social media content accessible. So
How do you make social media content accessible?
You have to give something called alt descriptions to all images.
That's for the blind, right? Yeah.
Yes, and you have to ensure that there are captions for the deaf. Yeah. So a lot of time, and now all of these are automated integrations on all social media platforms. So people have not been using it because they don't have an understanding of that. So even when you speak, you have to ensure that all the people that you're targeting are included in that way. So when I make a plan, which is a digital marketing plan, I educate them about the vast audience that there is. People don't think of disabled people as their audience when they are thinking of their brand, because disabled people are not seen as consumers. So that conversation happens right at the inception and a planning level, that not only non-disabled people are watching this and are going to go buy your product, but also disabled people. So you have to talk to that. And usually you see a lot of brands, came out with for blind people, came out with the braille signage and all. I also make it a point to educate people that there are a lot of late blind and late disabled people in life. So their access needs and their access mediums might be very different.
And in fact, I think AI has made this a lot easier. With alt text,
Absolutely.
I used to struggle to write descriptive alt text, but
Yeah.
today, if you put an image on ChatGPT
It gives
and
you
just say that create the alt text, it does a brilliant job.
in seconds. Except, we need to spread awareness about.
So you just need that intent as a corporate, right?
Absolutely, intent, and and they just don't know that there is something like this is being used by somebody. A lot of media companies, their websites are absolutely inaccessible. And I know that CCPD is going after a few. We know that. So I'm hoping that I will be able to help in that journey as well.
And just to add to the great list you've given, I would also say audio descriptions for the blind and videos is
Absolutely.
another good thing.
Yeah, and a lot of content is coming out on the OTT platforms, which is accessible. So that's a start.
No, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of your time, Shruti, but I wanted to ask you one last question, which I've been
Yeah.
asking everybody on this podcast.
Mhm.
What do you think can the common citizen of India do to make this country an equal opportunity country for persons with disabilities?
Show empathy. Show empathy to the person next to us. It may be a person with disability or without disability. You don't know what the other person is going through. Show empathy, don't judge.
Thank you so much, Shruti. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you, Navum.